In this video, I want to talk about probably one of the biggest mistakes that almost every single angler makes. I know that I have made this a lot, and I know that I continue to make this same mistake every single year. Whether you fish from the bank or from the boat, this is something that we all do, and it can cost us bass. It can also cost us a lot of big bass. But before I talk about this mistake, I do want you guys to know this video is brought to you by my apparel company, Fin Fishing. I am running a sale just in the month of March. If you buy a USA-made sun shirt, one of the only ones made in the US, you can get a hat at 50% off. This is a hat with a wooden bass patch on the top. So all you got to do is add the shirt to cart, add the hat to cart. It will automatically discount at checkout. All right, let's talk about this particular mistake. And this is one that, it's one that all of us as anglers know about, but it's one that isn't always on the front of our mind. When we go out there and we go fishing, again, whether you're from a bank or whether you're fishing out of a boat, it's not something that we always truly think about, because there are days where it actually doesn't matter. And I really thought about this today when I was listening to Bass Live on Bassmaster.com. They're at Lake Fork right now. It's really good TV. They're catching a ton of fish. And anyways, I was watching Matty Wong, a professional tournament fisherman. He was out there and he was casting a bigger like glide bait style bait and catching some big bass. And he was talking about this one specific bass. Now, the interesting thing is that he said that he noticed this bass on his forward-facing sonar. If he would cast and that bait would hit the water too hard, that bass would run away. And he actually made multiple casts at this fish before he was finally able to cast that bait, lay it in the water very gently, and actually end up catching that particular fish. I think it was between 6 and 9 pounds. I cannot remember which fish that it was. But anyways, it just made me think about not only casting and making splashes, but it really made me think about stealth. This to me is one of the most overlooked things that a lot of us anglers run into when we're out on the water. It's something that can truly cost us a lot of bass. Now, obviously, Matty Wong was using his forward-facing sonar. For those of you who do not have forward-facing sonar, or for those of you who are fishing from the bank, this is something that you may not always be able to legitimately see, but it happens. It happens all the time. When we're out there and we're casting a bait, if we're really crashing that bait into the water hard, yeah, there are days out there where it doesn't matter, right? There are days where the bass are super aggressive and they actually even may be attracted to that noise, that splashing noise. But when you are fishing on really highly pressured bodies of water, which Lake Fork is, where the Elite Series guys are right now, this can make a huge difference. And this is something that if Matty Wong hadn't of noticed about this particular fish, he probably would have never caught it. And a number of anglers would have never caught it, because they're all out there casting, and sometimes you're just not being as stealthy as you truly need to be to catch some really big bass. Now, stealthiness is not only something that happens when we're casting, right? When we're putting that lure into the water, but it's in a lot of things that we do as fishermen. You know, for example, I remember fishing in my pond years and years and years ago. Like growing up, I grew up with a pond in my backyard. And I remember so many times where I would kind of stomp into an area or run up into an area, and simply my footsteps and that vibration that they caused, you would see bass spook off the bank. And those were bass that a lot of times I would be able to catch on baits like a toad or a wacky rig. But when I would really pay attention to this stealthiness, like there was a few areas in that lake or that pond where I'd always get bit, and I would be very easy. I would walk very slowly. I would be very easy, because I knew a lot of times I might be able to visibly see a bass and cast to it. And there's a lot of situations like that that happen to us, not only from the bank, but also out there on the water. I know for something that I really truly believe has helped me in my approach to fishing sometimes is trying to make the longest cast to an area that I possibly can. I really believe that this is a big, big deal. If you have an area, say maybe it's a hump that has a small rock pile on it, and maybe you pull up to it, a lot of times what I do is I'm gonna set my boat about 300 feet away from that particular object that I am that I'm about to fish. And then I'm gonna jump up on the trolling motor, I'm gonna ease my trolling motor into the water, and then I'm going to creep up, and I usually try to make the longest cast that I can. Now, I can't cast 300 feet, but a lot of times if I'm getting somewhere around that 150 foot mark from the particular thing that I'm trying to hit, I will make as long bomb casts as I can, because I have found so many days that simply the boat getting closer and closer and displacing more and more water can move fish off of areas, simply the boat getting closer. And I've noticed this a lot, you know, so I love baits like topwater baits that you can absolutely wing a country mile, because you can get those baits way, way far out there, and it's kind of more or less surprises the bass. And a bass that's going to bite is the one that doesn't know that you are there. Sure, there are days where the bass are aggressive. It doesn't matter how close you get to them, but I feel that a lot of times if you can catch a bass kind of by surprise with your bait, that bass is a lot more likely to bite it. And that's why being stealthy out there on the water is just so important. Now, again, I still make this mistake all the time. Sometimes I run up on a spot, I don't set down as soon as I should, and I may spook fish that I actually don't even know. You know, like Matty, like, you know, if he hadn't noticed that one particular fish going down, like there may be, I'm sure there are hundreds of bass over my lifetime, maybe even ones that are personal bests for me that I have scared away because of me being just so noisy. Now, another thing that I think is a big time must, I really believe that this helps me when I'm fishing in shallow water these days, and that is my trolling motor. I have talked about this a lot because I really believe at how powerful it is and how many more bites you can get when you're out there on the water. But if you are fishing in shallow water, if you put your trolling motor on a constant speed and keep it at kind of that low constant speed, I am telling you, I think that there are days where you can double and even triple the number of bites that you will get simply by keeping that on a constant speed. Because what a lot of anglers do, and I'm still guilty of this, is that we'll fish through an area and we're on that trolling motor and we're off that trolling motor, and we're on that trolling motor and we're off that trolling motor. And every time you go from like a lot of noise to no noise, or no noise to a lot of noise, that scares a lot of these fish. But when you keep that trolling motor at a low or constant speed, it's kind of like just white noise. Like it just kind of blends in to everything. I actually live really close to railroad tracks. Like they're like 100 yards, 100, 200 yards maybe away from my house. Now, when trains come by, sometimes I will be sitting there in my living room and I all of a sudden realize, oh, there's a train going by. That noise comes from so far away, it rumbles, and sometimes I don't even notice it because of it just coming at a constant speed. I'll just sit there and be like, oh, there's a train. Like my boys love trains, so I'm always like, boys, there's a train there. But if that same noise had all of a sudden just started, I would think that the house was falling down. Like if I went from no like complete silence to the same silence, or to the same noise that train makes, I would think my house was falling down. And so that's the point of it, is that when you're on a trolling motor on and off of it, it's a lot for a bass. And like I said, there are days where it doesn't matter, but I think there's a lot of days, especially in really highly pressured bodies of water, where keeping it at a constant speed will get you substantially a lot more bites. Because I've seen this exact same thing play out with carp down in Florida. And this is where I really learned this tip or this trick. Well, I was down there in Florida, I was looking for beds with my own eyes, and I almost ran over several different carp, and I was going at like 90% on my trolling motor. And the thing is that if I'm on and off my trolling motor, those carp, I would have never even seen them. But because I'm on a constant speed looking all over, you'll get right up next to a carp, and then you like look down. Like I remember looking down at a couple of these, like I'm about to hit you, and I let off my trolling motor, and then all of a sudden they scatter, right? Because again, it's that constant speed. It's just like the train outside. So guys, when you're out there fishing, try to be as stealthy as you can. I know that there are days it doesn't matter, but there are days where it may mean the difference between you catching fish or not catching fish, or catching your personal best. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe, please give it a like, please comment below, and I will see you guys tomorrow.